It was July 15, 2016. Turkish Airlines had about 300 aircraft in operation, hundreds of thousands of passengers in transit. And suddenly, airspace closed. Istanbul Airport under siege. The hub that connected 3 continents had just been disconnected from the world. Not by a storm, not by a pandemic, but by a coup attempt.
This breaking international news, an attempted coup underway right now in Turkey.
Airspace and parts of Istanbul Airport were occupied by the military. Chaos had ensued, and Turkish should have disappeared. But what happened was exactly the opposite.
If you're also passionate about the world of aviation, consider subscribing to the channel and supporting our team.
Let's put this in perspective. In the year 2000, while Emirates was already operating intercontinental routes with modern wide-bodies, while Lufthansa dominated Europe and Singapore Airlines established global luxury standards, Turkish Airlines was a deficit-ridden regional carrier with an outdated fleet. It transported about 10 million passengers per year. Sounds like a lot? Lufthansa was already above 47 million. The Turkish fleet consisted mainly of old narrow bodies, classic 737s and some A310s that had seen better days. There was no real capacity to compete on long-haul routes. But here's the thing. The problem wasn't just operational. It was positioning. If you were in Sao Paulo and wanted to go to Bangkok, you didn't think of Turkish. You thought of Lufthansa via Frankfurt, British via London, KLM via Amsterdam, or even Emirates via Dubai. Istanbul didn't even appear on the radar. The company had a fragile reputation, questionable punctuality, and was consistently losing money. To make matters worse, the Turkish economy was going through one of the worst crises in its history in the late 90s and early 2000s. 3-digit inflation, currency collapse. The government needed to sell state assets urgently, and Turkish Airlines was one of those assets that nobody quite knew what to do with. Now, you might be thinking, how does a company in this situation become the world's largest international connector? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. In 2003, something changes radically. New management, new strategic thinking, and a bold question. What if we transformed our greatest weakness into our greatest advantage? The weakness? Istanbul was geographically halfway between everything, Europe and Asia, north and south. But that also meant it was in the middle of the way for absolutely everyone. Look at the geometry. Istanbul is approximately 4 hours flight from London, 3.5 hours from Cairo, 4 hours from Moscow, 5 hours from Dubai. It's the perfect point to connect passengers between destinations that would normally require 2 or even 3 connections. Turkish's new leadership had a clear vision. We want anyone from anywhere in the world to be able to reach their destination with just one connection in Istanbul. Sounds simple, but executing this is very complex. First move, partial privatization in 2005 and 2006. This brought private capital, operational efficiency, and pressure for results. Second move, joining the Star Alliance in 2008. Suddenly, Turkish no longer competed alone against European giants. It became their partner, sharing codes, passengers, and revenue. 2003, 46 destinations. 2008, 68 destinations. 2010, 82 destinations. But the most important move? The massive investment in a modern fleet. Between 2005 and 2010, Turkish ordered dozens of new aircraft. Airbus A330s for medium and long-haul routes. Boeing 737 next generation to replace the old jets. And here's the crucial part. For the first time, the company had access to reliable and efficient wide-bodies. But something was still missing. The longest routes, those truly profitable to North America, East Asia, South America, required something bigger, something with more range, more capacity, more prestige. Turkish needed a symbol of its new era, and it arrived. Here's where everything changes. In May 2010, Turkish Airlines receives its first Boeing 777-300ER. And this isn't just another plane in the fleet. This is the absolute game changer. Let me explain why this aircraft matters so much. The 777-300ER is an absolutely extraordinary machine. It can fly 7,370 nautical miles. That's over 13,600 kilometers without stopping. It carries between 350 and 400 passengers depending on configuration. And it does this burning much less fuel per seat than the 747 it was replacing at many airlines. But for Turkish specifically, the 777-300ER represented three fundamental things: real global reach, economics of scale that worked, and brand repositioning. Then the wind started blowing in its favor. Between 2011 and 2016, Turkish Airlines won Skytrax's Best Airline in Europe award 4 times. Coincidence that this happened exactly during the massive implementation of the 777-300ER? I don't think so. The fleet grew rapidly. In 2015, Turkish already operated 27 Boeing 777-300ERs. Today, that number is above 46 aircraft. It's the backbone of the company's long-haul operation. If you fly Turkish to the Americas, to much of Asia, to Southern Africa, you're on the 777-300ER. And here's the phrase that perfectly sums it all up. If Turkish Airlines was reborn, it was aboard the 777-300ER. Between 2010 and 2016, something extraordinary happens. Turkish Airlines becomes the airline that flies to more countries than any other on the planet. Not more destinations, more countries. Let me put this in perspective. In 2016, Turkish flew to 121 countries. Lufthansa, 78. Emirates, 85. British Airways, about 75. Nobody came close. How was this possible? The answer lies in an extremely well-executed hub model combined with an aggressive and intelligent market penetration strategy. Turkish didn't just go after the obvious markets. It found opportunities where nobody was looking. Take Africa, for example. While European carriers were reducing flights to the African continent for profitability reasons, Turkish did the opposite. It added Mogadishu, N'Djamena, Kinshasa, Ouagadougou, cities that many Western passengers can't even locate on a map. But here's the key. Each of these routes fed the Istanbul hub. A businessman going from Luanda to Frankfurt now had an option via Istanbul. A student from Dhaka wanting to visit family in London could connect through Turkish. Wedding in Saudi Arabia for a family living in Pakistan? Turkish Airlines.
The company created connectivity between regions that simply didn't exist before. That's the true power of a well-positioned hub. And the numbers reflect this. Between 2010 and 2016, passengers carried annually from 29 million to 62 million. Growth above 100% in 6 years, load factor consistently above 77%, operating revenue more than doubled. Turkish also began winning awards consistently. Best Airline in Southern Europe, Best Transatlantic Business Class, Best Catering. This wasn't luck. It was systematic execution of a well-defined strategy. The Istanbul hub worked like a Swiss watch. Waves of arrivals and departures perfectly coordinated. Optimized connection time, rarely less than 90 minutes, rarely more than 3 hours. Transit passengers had access to modern lounges, assistance services, even free city tours for long connections. Everything was working. The machine was well-oiled. Growth seemed unstoppable. And then came the night of July 15, 2016. Now you understand why that coup attempt was so dangerous. It wasn't just about politics. It was about destroying in one night what took 15 years to build. Turkish Airlines' entire model depended on Istanbul functioning perfectly as a hub, and suddenly Istanbul was on fire. Turkish airspace was closed for more than 12 hours. Hundreds of flights canceled, passengers stranded at terminals around the world, broken connections. The domino effect was devastating. 300-plus flights canceled in the first 24 hours. Estimated loss of $50 million on the first day alone. Thousands of passengers affected globally. But here's what makes this story fascinating. Turkish didn't panic. The company's leadership activated contingency plans that had been developed exactly for crisis scenarios. Planes were diverted to secondary airports in Turkey and neighboring countries. Passengers were aggressively relocated. Communication with international markets was transparent and quick. Within 48 hours, airspace partially reopened. Within a week, 90% of operations were normalized. A month later, the numbers already showed recovery. Analysts were shocked. Goldman Sachs published a report calling the recovery remarkably fast. Moody's, which had threatened to downgrade the company's rating, maintained the stable classification. How was this possible?
Two main reasons. First, Turkish had built redundancy into the system. Multiple airports in Turkey could operate as temporary secondary hubs. The fleet was versatile and could be redistributed quickly. The operations management software was cutting edge. Second reason, and perhaps more important, the demand for the Istanbul hub was real. Passengers wanted to fly via Turkish because the connectivity was genuinely superior. It wasn't empty marketing. These were routes that simply didn't exist any other way. Within 3 months, Turkish was reporting load factors above what it had before the coup. The market had voted with its feet. The Istanbul hub was indispensable. If the 2016 coup was the biggest threat, 2018 was the definitive consecration. In October 2018, the new Istanbul airport was inaugurated. And when I say new airport, I'm talking about one of the largest infrastructure projects on the planet. The numbers are absurd. Initial capacity, 90 million passengers per year. Final planned capacity, when all phases are completed, 200 million annual passengers. That's more than any other airport in the world, more than Atlanta, more than Dubai, more than Heathrow. Turkish Airlines moved its entire operation, all of its 350 aircraft at the time, to the new airport in a period of 45 hours. It was called the Big Move and planned with military precision, one of the largest logistical operations in commercial aviation history. And the airport was designed specifically to optimize Turkish's hub model. Connected terminals, minimized connection times, capacity to process 3,000 passengers per hour in international transfers, cutting-edge technology and biometrics, automated baggage, security processes. What did this airport represent? The certainty that Turkish Airlines had arrived. It was no longer a company fighting to survive. It was a dominant global force with the infrastructure to grow even more. And the plans don't stop. Turkish has orders for dozens of A350s and 787s. It's expanding into new markets in Oceania, negotiating even more aggressive code-sharing agreements. The company that almost went bankrupt in the 2000s, that was almost destroyed in 2016, is now projected to transport more than 100 million passengers annually in the coming years. It faced economic collapse, outdated technology, extreme political instability, including a coup attempt that literally shut down the country. Any one of these events could have been fatal. Today, Turkish Airlines flies to more countries than any other airline on the planet, carries more than 80 million passengers per year, operates one of the most efficient hubs in the world, is consistently ranked among the best in Europe. Turkish Airlines didn't become great by luck. It survived because it learned to be reborn every time the world tried to bring it down. And if there's a lesson here, it's this. In the world of aviation, as in life, resilience is worth more than perfection. Turkish should have disappeared more than once, but it's here, stronger than ever, connecting the world, one route at a time.